To the world, he was a legend. But inside, Dylan was empty. 5 years. That's how long it had been since Katie vanished. Not a text, not a letter, not a whisper. The silence used to make him angry. Now it just made him numb. His fingers tightened around the edge of the mahogany desk, not because of another failed deal, but because of what today marked. 5 years to the day since she'd left. Hello, my lovely family. Before we begin, I need your help. This story's about love lost, and love rediscovered in the most unexpected way. It's raw, it's real, and I had to cut it short just so you could feel everything without the fluff. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, and share this with someone who believes in second chances. It tells YouTube this story matters. And it truly does. Now, let's get to it. No dragging, no long descriptions, just the core of what you came for. She didn't even take much. Just a suitcase. She didn't yell, didn't beg, just slipped her ring onto the velvet settee like she was leaving a dinner party early. And she never came back. He'd replayed their last night 100 times, maybe more. He didn't even remember what sparked the argument. Business call? Canceled date? A stupid comment? Probably all of it. All he knew was, he never said, "Don't go." He assumed she'd cool off, like before. But Katie never just stormed out, not unless she meant it. And this time, she meant it. He tried everything. Private security, GPS tracking, credit card tracing, social media scraping. Nothing. She had ghosted the planet. And the cruelest part? He hadn't even known she was pregnant. Mr. Walker, the intercom crackled with Elena's voice, gentle and uncertain. "There's something you need to see." Dylan pressed the button. "Now's not a good. It's about her." He paused. "Elena?" A photo. It was reposted by a local Boston blogger who covered our foundation gala. "You're not going to believe this." Elena sent the image through. Dylan clicked. The screen expanded. His breath caught. In the background of a ribbon-cutting photo, barely noticeable behind the smiling politicians, stood a woman holding a child. She wore jeans, a simple top, hair shorter now, body a little fuller, but the bone structure? He could never forget it. Katie. And in her arms, a girl, 4 years old, maybe 5, messy chocolate curls, big blue eyes. His eyes. Dylan's hand trembled as he zoomed in. The little girl's nose, that slight tilt in her chin. He dropped into the chair. How? How could Katie hide this? His child. Out there, breathing, growing, laughing. Without him, he couldn't sit still. "Elena," he said, voice thick. "Yes, sir?" "Book the jet. I need to be in Boston tonight." Dylan didn't pack a bag, didn't tell his board. He didn't even think. The Gulf Stream lifted off at sunset, slicing through clouds while his heart threatened to beat out of his chest. He'd pictured Katie countless times over the years, in Paris, in Rio, starting over with someone new. But never with a child. His child. What kind of man had he become? No, not now. He couldn't think about the past. This was about Madison now. He had to see her, hear her laugh, smell her hair, be her father. Even if Katie slammed the door in his face, he had to try. The limo pulled up in front of a modest community center in Roxbury, a world away from his glass tower. Children's voices echoed from inside. And there she was, standing by the entrance, barefoot toddler in one arm, paper towel in the other, wiping paint from her cheek. Katie. She hadn't seen him yet. He stepped out slowly. The driver offered an umbrella. He waved it off. He wanted to see her. Without glass, without guards, without filters. Just her. The woman he never stopped loving. She looked up. Her eyes locked on his. She froze. The little girl clung to her, tugging on her sleeve. "Mommy, look, that's the man from the news." Katie paled. Dylan took one step forward. Just one. And his entire world shifted again. He wasn't here for a deal. He wasn't here to win. He was here to beg. The paintbrush dipped into bright orange. Katie pressed the bristles to the canvas in slow, deliberate strokes as little hands followed beside hers. "Like this, Mommy?" Madison asked, her eyes squinting in focus. "Almost, baby," Katie said gently, wiping a smudge off her daughter's cheek. Tilt your wrist a little, like a feather. They were the only ones left in the community center's children's wing after class. The sun was setting through the dusty windows, coating the room in warm amber. Madison twirled on her toes, wearing a paper crown and mismatched socks. Look, ballerina hands. Katie laughed, a real laugh that lived in her chest. You're perfect. This was peace. It didn't come with stock options or lavish penthouses, but it came with sidewalk chalk drawings and peanut butter stains and kisses at midnight. This was the life Katie chose, and no one was allowed to ruin it. After cleaning the brushes, Katie wiped the easel with practiced hands. Her art wasn't on gallery walls anymore. She didn't care. Here, her canvases were made from cereal boxes and old newspapers. Her applause came in the form of giggles and messy fingers. Madison sat cross-legged in the corner, humming and painting hearts on scrap paper. Katie watched her, really watched her. That wide forehead, those impossibly blue eyes, that look of stubborn curiosity. Katie knew that face, knew it better than her own. Madison looked just like Dylan. That fact used to scare her. Now, it still did. Katie hadn't left because of infidelity. There was no other woman. There was no betrayal of the body. It was betrayal of presence. Dylan had been so consumed by his climb that he didn't see what he was stepping on, who he was stepping over. And the worst part, Katie let herself become background noise in his empire. She'd been left waiting too many nights. She'd cried over missed dinners, empty beds, promises shattered without a second glance. So, she walked. Before it broke her completely. She didn't know she was pregnant then. If she had, maybe she would have stayed. Or maybe it made walking away even more urgent, because she couldn't let another girl grow up feeling invisible. Madison didn't know her father, and Katie planned to keep it that way. They had a rule: no photos of famous men on the walls, no TVs in the house, only children's books, art supplies, and music. Still, Madison had questions. Why don't I have a daddy like my friends? Katie always gave her the same answer. Some daddies are on special adventures, and some families are just made different. It worked, until now. Katie reached into her tote and pulled out 2 apples, tossing one to Madison. The little girl caught it with both hands. You think I'll have curly hair forever? Madison asked between bites. Katie smiled. I hope so. Even when I'm a big girl. Katie leaned in and kissed her forehead. You'll always be my little girl. The next morning, the classroom was quiet. Too quiet. Katie stood in the hallway with her travel mug, waiting for the usual chaos. The thump of sneakers, the rustle of backpacks, the chatter of little voices. Instead, she heard nothing. Then, the tap of expensive shoes on linoleum. A slow turn. Her mug nearly slipped from her hands. Outside the glass doors, a black limousine had pulled up. Her stomach twisted. No, 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 no. It couldn't be. Katie walked to the front slowly, each step heavier than the last. Madison was beside her, skipping and humming. Mommy, look! That car looks like the kind in princess movies. Katie forced a smile. Yeah, it does. The back door opened. Time stopped. Dylan Walker stepped out, tailored in a black suit. No tie, collar loose, hair tousled just enough to still look expensive. Katie felt her knees weaken. Madison stared. Mommy, she whispered, tugging her arm. That's the man from the news. Katie didn't answer. Dylan didn't speak, not with words. His eyes, those same piercing eyes her daughter had inherited, were locked on Madison, and his expression, it shattered her. Katie turned her body to block Madison. Protective, reflexive, terrified. She didn't need this, didn't want this. Not now, not ever. Stay here, she told Madison gently. She stepped forward, voice low. You shouldn't be here. Dylan's mouth opened, then shut again. His throat worked. I saw the photo. Katie's eyes hardened. I'm not here to cause problems, he said softly. I had to know. Is she? He swallowed. Is she mine? Katie didn't blink. Yes. Dylan staggered back half a step. A grown man, broken by a 3-letter word. Tears shimmered in his eyes. I didn't know, he whispered. Katie's voice was steel. That's on you. I would've what? Taken her to board meetings? Canceled last minute like you did every time we had dinner? I'm not that man anymore. Katie studied him, lips tight. "I'll leave if you want me to," Dylan said. But I needed to see her once, to know if I was crazy, or if I really did miss the only thing that ever mattered. Madison peeked around Katie's leg. "Mommy, who is he?" Katie didn't move. Dylan crouched, meeting Madison's curious eyes with trembling breath. He looked up at Katie for permission. None came. "I'm just someone who should have come a long time ago." Katie stood frozen. The warm Boston morning suddenly felt cold against her skin. Her body was tense, her grip on Madison's hand firm. Dylan hadn't moved either. He was crouched, still eye level with the little girl who had no idea she'd just cracked open 5 years of silence. "Mommy," Madison whispered, tugging her again. "He looks like the drawing I made." Katie didn't reply. "Back inside, sweetheart," she said gently. "Now." Madison pouted but obeyed, skipping toward the center doors. Katie waited until she was out of earshot. Then she turned to Dylan, voice ice. "You don't get to show up like this." Dylan rose slowly. His face was pale. His jaw clenched. He looked like a man unraveling from the inside, trying desperately to hold the pieces in place. "I had no idea," he said, his voice low. "You were pregnant?" Katie's laugh was bitter and quiet. "You didn't notice a lot back then." "I was blind," Dylan admitted. "I'll own that." She crossed her arms. "You said you wanted to know. Now you do. She's yours. Congratulations. You can go." His eyes flinched like she slapped him. "I don't want to disrupt anything," he said carefully. "I just want to understand. Why didn't you tell me? You weren't the kind of man who'd make room for a child, Dylan. That's not fair." Katie stepped closer. "Isn't it? You couldn't make time for dinner, Dylan, for sleep, for love. How were you going to make time for fatherhood?" He had no argument. He'd always told himself the empire he was building was for her. The penthouse, the wealth, the power. But in the process, he'd forgotten that empires don't comfort you at night. People do. "You disappeared," he said, not in anger, but in grief. "You were just gone. And you didn't stop to ask why. You just went on like nothing happened." He took a shaky breath. "I hired people to find you. For years. Did you ever think I didn't want to be found?" His silence was answer enough. "Her name is Madison," Katie said suddenly, folding her arms across her chest. "She loves rainbows, hates carrots, and draws everything she dreams." Dylan swallowed hard. "Madison. She's bright, creative, stubborn as hell. I wonder where she got that from," she added coldly. A pained smile flickered across his lips. Katie's expression didn't change. "She's happy," she said. "She doesn't know she was missing anything." "But she was," Dylan said softly. "She was missing me." Katie bristled. "Don't you dare." "I'm not claiming something I didn't earn," he replied. "But I'm here now, and I want to try to what? Be a weekend dad? Fly in when your schedule allows?" "No," Dylan said. "To be present, to rebuild, not just with her, with you too." Katie's jaw tightened. "Don't," she said. "Don't say that like it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's worth it." The door creaked. Madison peeked her head out. "I finished my painting," she called. "Want to see?" Dylan blinked back tears. "Yes, please." Katie didn't stop her daughter this time. Madison skipped out, holding up a page smeared with marker colors. It was a stick figure family, a woman with curly hair, a man with blue eyes, and a girl in a rainbow dress. "That's me," she pointed. "And that's you, Mommy. And that's—" She paused, looking up at Dylan. "Is that me?" he asked gently. She tilted her head. "Are you the man from the dreams?" Katie's breath caught. Dylan nodded slowly. "I might be." She smiled like she'd just solved a puzzle. "Cool." Katie watched in silence. She had feared this day for so long. And here it was, happening without her permission. Her carefully built walls were being chipped away by a little girl's grin and a billionaire's broken heart. Madison took Dylan's hand. It looked so small, wrapped in his. Katie didn't want to feel what she felt, didn't want to remember how it felt when that hand held hers, or the way his voice used to say her name in the dark. But most of all, she didn't want to hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope made you soft, and soft got you hurt. "I don't want to take her," Dylan said softly, Once Madison skipped back inside. Katie raised a brow. I know you're expecting me to try. To throw money at this. To file some legal paperwork and barge in. Wouldn't be the first time you bulldozed your way through something, she muttered. But I'm not that man anymore, he said. And I'm not here to fight. I'm here to ask. He stepped forward, voice shaking. Let me know her. Katie didn't answer. I'm not asking for joint custody or a seat at your table, not yet. I'm just asking for time. To fix what you broke? No, Dylan said. To be what I should have been from the start. Katie looked away. She hated that her heart was racing. She hated that Madison liked him. She hated that Dylan still knew how to speak in that voice, the one that wasn't commanding or arrogant but real. Quiet. Human. I need time to think, she finally said. Dylan nodded. I'll wait. However long it takes. The stars above Boston didn't shine like Manhattan's skyline, but tonight they were the only lights Katie needed. She sat on the old wooden steps of her porch, barefoot, cradling a chipped mug of tea. The hum of late summer bugs filled the night. The front door creaked softly behind her. She didn't look, but she knew it was him. Dylan stepped out, slower than usual, like he wasn't sure if he was welcome. He wasn't, but she didn't send him away either. He sat beside her, not too close, not too far, just close enough to hear her breathing. She's asleep? He asked quietly. Katie nodded. Did she say anything about me? Katie exhaled. She said you had superhero shoulders. Dylan huffed a small laugh. She's generous. She's 4. That's her superpower. They both chuckled. For a moment, it felt like the old days. Back when laughter came easy, before ambition drowned their love. You left, Dylan finally said. Katie turned her head slowly. You act like I vanished into thin air. You did. No, she said, tone sharp. I disappeared from your life. Not from the world. You just weren't looking in the right places. I looked everywhere. Then you didn't look here. Dylan's jaw tensed. You were married to your ambition, Dylan, to deals and mergers. I was just a soft landing at night. That's not true, isn't it? He didn't answer, because deep down, he knew she was right. I used to wait up for you, Katie said, staring out at the streetlights. I used to make dinner, set the table, pour wine. You'd show up late or not at all. And when you did, you'd kiss my cheek like it was a favor. He looked down. I was building something, he whispered. Yeah, and in the process you destroyed what we already had. He flinched. Katie's voice softened, just a touch. I never hated you, Dylan. I just got tired of loving someone who couldn't love me back. He turned to her, eyes full of quiet torment. I did love you. You loved what I gave you. You didn't see me. Dylan dropped his head into his hands. I didn't know how to love without building, without fixing. Katie swallowed. That's the thing. I didn't need to be fixed. I needed to be held. I needed presence, not presence. I sold the penthouse, he said suddenly. She blinked. What? I couldn't live there anymore. Every room reminded me of what I lost, so I sold it, took the money and started a foundation. For what? For single mothers and girls in underfunded art programs. In your name. Katie's heart stalled. You did that. For me? For the woman I hurt. For the little girl I never got to meet. I'm sorry, Dylan said, voice breaking. Not a corporate apology. Not a polished statement. A real one. Katie closed her eyes. Tears burned the backs of her lids. I don't know how to let you back in, she whispered. I spent so long learning how to breathe without you. I'm not asking to be let in all at once, he replied. I'm asking for the chance to stand at the door. A long pause. Then, I never stopped loving you, Katie. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Instead, she turned. And their eyes met, not with resentment, but with decades of memory. The first kiss, the broken promises, the laughter, the arguments, the passion, the silence. She leaned in, slow and hesitant. So did he. When their lips met, it wasn't polished or cinematic. It was real, messy, tear-stained, breathless, and it unlocked something buried. Katie pulled back just slightly. Her voice was hoarse. I shouldn't have done that. I'm glad you did. I'm still angry. You're allowed. I don't trust you. I'll earn it. Every day. Katie stood, flustered, wiping her eyes. This doesn't change anything, she said. It doesn't mean I forgive you. I know. It doesn't mean I'm letting you into her life. Understood. She turned toward the door, then stopped. But it means I remembered what your kiss tastes like. Dylan swallowed. And it still makes me feel like I'm falling. The porch door clicked shut behind Katie. Dylan stood in the hallway, unsure if he should follow, but he couldn't leave. Not now. Katie turned slowly, back against the wall, eyes fixed on him. Her chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. He stepped forward. She didn't move. The distance between them disappeared in an instant. He kissed her like a man who'd been dying of thirst, and she kissed him like a woman who finally allowed herself to feel again. Years of pain poured into that kiss. Anger, desire, regret. He gripped her hips, pushed her gently against the wall, and pressed his forehead to hers. "Tell me you missed me," he murmured. "I hate how much I did." The hallway became their confession booth. Dylan's jacket hit the floor. Katie's tank top slipped over her head, falling in a soft heap. His lips moved along her neck, tasting every inch like he had a right to it, and yet he paused with reverence, as though asking permission with each kiss. She didn't speak. She just pulled him closer. Her fingers dug into his back as he pressed her harder into the wall, lifting her effortlessly, her legs wrapping around his waist. "You haven't left my dreams," he groaned. "You haunted mine," she gasped. He carried her toward the kitchen, breath hitching as she dragged her lips along his jaw. Katie yanked open his shirt, buttons scattering to the floor like a storm. The past was crumbling behind them, replaced with fire. On the counter, Dylan paused. His eyes drifted down her body, halting at the faint scar across her lower abdomen. A silent beat. Then he lowered his head, pressed a kiss there. Soft, devout. "For her," he whispered. "For what you went through alone." Katie closed her eyes. No one had ever touched her scar. Not like that. Not like it mattered. She didn't cry, but her heart cracked open in silence. He looked up, and for the first time in 5 years, she saw the man she fell in love with. The one who felt. Their bodies collided again, more urgent this time. Hands in hair, legs wrapped, breath caught. He lifted her off the counter and pinned her to the wall once more, lips on her collarbone, hips aligned in perfect memory. Her moans filled the hallway. "Say my name," he growled, hoarse and needy. "Dylan." Louder. Dylan. His name on her tongue was salvation. She didn't hold back. Not the sighs, not the whispers, not the hunger. Every touch screamed, "I missed you." Every gasp echoed, "Don't let go." He wasn't gentle. She didn't want gentle. They needed raw, needed real. Their love was born from chaos and reborn in this. Afterward, the house was silent again. Dylan lay on the couch, shirtless, chest rising slowly. Katie sat on the floor between his legs, her head resting on his knee, wrapped in his button-down shirt. Neither of them spoke for a while. When she finally did, her voice was barely above a whisper. "You don't just get to walk back in. I know. You don't get to rewrite history with sex." "I don't want to rewrite anything," he replied. "I want to build something new." Katie turned her head to face him. "New still requires trust. And I'll earn it," Dylan said, "even if it takes forever." Katie pulled her knees to her chest. "I didn't let anyone in, Dylan. All these years." He sat up slowly. "Why?" "Because none of them were you." She looked down. "I hated you," she said. "I hated myself, and yet here we are." He reached for her hand. "Do you regret it? Regret loving you? No. Regret tonight?" She paused. "Also no." He smiled. "But this doesn't mean anything changes yet," she said firmly. "It means we're not pretending anymore," he replied. She didn't argue, because he was right. They didn't sleep in the same bed. Not yet. Katie gave him a blanket and the couch. But in the morning, when the sun crept through the windows and Madison called out for breakfast, she found him already in the kitchen, shirtless, burning pancakes. Badly. He looked ridiculous. Flour on his cheek, syrup on his eyebrow. "Please tell me you're not feeding her that," Katie said, amused. "She says she likes the crispy parts." Madison danced into the room in her pajamas. "I like it when he flips them and drops one." Katie watched them laugh, and for the first time since Dylan had reappeared, she didn't feel afraid. The kitchen was a disaster. Flour dusted the countertop. A spatula stuck out of a jar of peanut butter. Pancake batter dripped down the edge of the mixing bowl like a lazy waterfall. In the center of it all stood Dylan Walker, billionaire, investor, power player, flipping lopsided pancakes in his socks. Madison clapped her hands. That one almost landed on the pan. Katie leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. Almost. He grinned sheepishly. 70% success rate. Madison pointed. You have syrup on your eyebrow. He wiped at the wrong side. She giggled. Katie didn't say a word, just watched. There was something reckless and beautiful about seeing him like this. Not in boardrooms, not in suits, but barefoot, fumbling, and fully present. Later that morning, Dylan joined Madison at the living room floor. Markers were everywhere. Sheets of drawings spilled like a colorful sea. Rainbows, castles, dinosaurs, and people. Lots of people. One drawing had 3 figures. A girl in a yellow dress, a woman with short hair, and a tall man with blue eyes. Madison looked up. That's you, she pointed. Dylan blinked. Me. Yeah. I've been drawing you before you got here. He swallowed. What made you draw me? I don't know, she said with a shrug. I just knew you were real. Katie, from the hallway, turned away. Tears pricked her eyes. Children didn't need instructions to believe in magic. They just needed hope. After lunch, Madison brought Dylan a small stuffed fox missing an ear. She's nervous, she said. Dylan knelt. Why? She thinks you'll leave. He blinked. What's her name? Maple. Maple, he said seriously, holding the fox. I promise I'm not going anywhere. Madison studied him, really looked at him. Then, can I tell you a secret? He leaned in. Of course, she whispered. I think you're my daddy. Dylan froze. Katie, standing by the kitchen sink, dropped the plate she was drying. It didn't shatter, but the sound was sharp enough to cut the silence. He looked at Katie. Katie looked at the floor. Katie took a long breath. Then she knelt beside Madison and tucked a curl behind her ear. Sweetheart, she said gently, do you want to know the truth? Madison nodded. Katie looked at Dylan, then back at her daughter. This is Dylan, she said. And yes, he's your daddy. Madison didn't cry. She didn't gasp. She just tilted her head. I already knew. Dylan blinked. How? She pointed to his eyes. They look like mine. Then, without warning, she wrapped her small arms around his neck. I drew you with superhero muscles and a sad face, she said into his shoulder. But you're not sad anymore. Dylan clung to her like he'd never let go again. Katie turned away. She wasn't ready for the sight of her daughter healing something inside the man who once broke her. That evening, Dylan sat in the backyard watching Madison chase lightning bugs with a jar and far too much energy. Katie joined him, folding her arms. She's a lot, she said. She's everything, he replied. They sat in silence for a beat. I don't know how to do this, Dylan admitted. Neither do I. But I want to. With her, with you. She glanced at him. This isn't just about showing up, Dylan. I know. It's about consistency, discipline, tenderness, listening. I can learn. She sighed. Most men don't bother trying. He looked at her. Then let me be the one who does. Later that night, as Katie tucked Madison into bed, the little girl whispered, Mommy? Yes, baby? Can he stay again? Katie hesitated. Please, Madison added. He makes the house feel bigger. Katie leaned in and kissed her forehead. We'll see. In the hallway, Dylan waited. I heard, he said softly. She's just a kid. She's honest. That's what scares you, isn't it? Katie met his gaze. I've protected her from pain, and now you're afraid letting me in means letting pain in too. She nodded. I won't hurt her, Dylan said. Not ever. Katie's eyes glistened. Don't make promises you can't keep. I won't, he said, because I already broke too many. Katie lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Moonlight traced soft silver lines across her bedroom. The house was quiet. Madison had drifted into sleep, her soft snores barely audible from down the hall. Katie didn't hear Dylan approach. She felt it. A subtle shift in the air. A quiet exhale at her door. She turned her head. Their eyes met. No words. Just, come in. He stepped inside, and closed the door behind him. He didn't reach for her. He just stood still, waiting. Katie sat up, the covers falling around her waist. She motioned softly. A single hand gesture. An invitation. Dylan crossed the room, bare-chested, worn from a long day that felt like an entire lifetime. He sat at the edge of the bed, unsure. "I'm not asking for forever," she whispered. "I'm not offering apologies anymore," he said back. "Just truth." He leaned in, kissed her slowly. It wasn't fire this time. It was warmth. His hands moved carefully. He touched her like he was tracing a map he never wanted to forget. Her spine, her ribs, her jawline. "I want to memorize every inch of you," Dylan murmured. "Why?" "Because I never want to miss you again. Not even in my dreams." Katie exhaled. Her fingers skimmed his shoulder, her voice a breath, then start. Their lips met again, and again. Soft, steady, sacred. This time, he didn't pin her against a wall or lift her in haste. This time, he took his time, undressed her like peeling back petals. His kisses found the places she'd forgotten could feel like this, like being seen, not claimed. Her collarbone, the crease of her elbow, the underside of her knee. When he entered her, there was no gasp, no urgency. Just a single inhale, shared between them, no words, just movement, and breath, and the kind of silence that holds everything sacred. She cried quietly, not from pain, not from sadness, from release, from the way his hands steadied her hips, from the way he whispered her name like it was the first word he ever learned, from the way he didn't rush, not her, not himself. It was slow, deliberate, and for the first time in a very long time, Katie felt like she was more than just a mother, more than just someone who held everything together. She felt wanted, cherished, known. They didn't speak immediately after. They lay side by side, fingers barely touching between them. Outside, birds chirped. Inside, something delicate stirred. Not lust, not confusion, hope. Dylan turned to her, eyes soft. "I wasn't sure if I was allowed to touch you like that." Katie smiled faintly. "You didn't just touch my body, Dylan." He waited. "You touched something I buried." He didn't respond. He just reached over, took her hand, and kissed the center of her palm. As they dressed that morning, neither spoke of labels. No, are we back together? No. What are we now? Just ease. When Madison burst into the bedroom holding 2 mismatched socks in a wild story about a dream involving a dragon and maple syrup, they both laughed. Together. Katie looked at Dylan while Madison jabbered on, and she saw something she hadn't seen in years. Stillness. Not inaction. Stillness, the kind that meant he wasn't running anymore. He was here. "Before I move forward, let me ask you something real. Have you ever had a moment that felt like healing through touch, where someone saw past your layers and loved you, not with noise, but with presence? Tell me in the comments. Your words might help someone who thinks they're unlovable. If this part of the story warmed your soul, please like, share, and subscribe to Love and Twilights. This channel lives because you do. The next Saturday, Dylan pulled up to Katie's modest house in a sleek black SUV. He didn't wear a suit, just a light sweater, dark jeans, and a hopeful look. Madison peeked through the blinds. "Is he taking us somewhere fancy?" Katie arched a brow. "Why do you say that?" "He smells like money," she said with a giggle. Katie chuckled. "He smells like aftershave and second chances." Dylan stepped onto the porch with a single line. "I want to show you something." Katie hesitated, but Madison was already grabbing her coat. The drive was quiet, not tense, just uncertain. They pulled into a long private driveway, surrounded by trees. Ahead stood a sprawling estate, not cold, not flashy. It looked lived in, warm stone, big windows, a garden bursting with wildflowers. Katie blinked. "You bought a house?" "I built a life," Dylan said. "This is part of it." He opened Madison's door and lifted her into his arms. She squealed with laughter. Katie followed, still unsure what to feel, until she walked through the doors. Past the foyer, Dylan led them down a hallway into a room with vaulted ceilings and soft lighting. Katie froze. Paintings filled the walls, brush strokes wild, colors bold, each piece signed by a woman's name she didn't recognize. "These are all single mothers," Dylan said quietly. Women who came through the foundation. Some were homeless, some had nothing, but they had talent. They just needed someone to believe in it. Katie's hand flew to her chest. You gave them this space? I gave them a start, he said. They gave the rest. Then he motioned to a curtain at the far end. There's one more. He pulled it aside. Katie's breath caught. It was a mural, large, vibrant, framed in gold leaf. A little girl with curly hair. A woman with paint on her cheek. A man kneeling, arms outstretched. The lines were familiar. Katie stepped closer and gasped. It was Madison's drawing, the one she had shown him days ago. Blown up, reimagined, brought to life. She drew us, Dylan said, and I wanted the world to see it. Madison beamed. That's my picture. Katie turned to Dylan, eyes wide, mouth trembling. How did you? I had a copy scanned, sent it to one of the mothers here. She turned it into this. Katie couldn't speak, so he did. There's one more thing. Dylan reached into his coat pocket, knelt. But this wasn't a performance. There were no photographers, no champagne flutes, just a man on the ground, holding a velvet box. I'm not asking to fix what I broke, he said. I'm not asking to erase the past. He opened the box. Inside, a ring, simple, elegant, nothing like the one she left on the velvet settee years ago. I'm asking to build something new. With you, with her. If you'll let me. Katie knelt too, not to accept, but to meet him where he was. I never stopped loving you, she whispered. And I never will, he replied. That evening, Madison fell asleep in a reading nook shaped like a crescent moon. Katie and Dylan stood in the hallway, watching her breathe. She fits here, Katie said. So do you. Katie looked up at him. I don't want to rush into anything. I don't want to either, he said. I just want to keep doing this, showing you. She nodded. He took her hand. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better, because this time it was real. The morning air was soft, the kind that made you close your eyes just to feel it more fully. The garden behind Dylan's estate had been transformed, not by event planners, not by florists, but by the women in his foundation. Hand-planted daisies lined the aisle. String lights draped over wooden beams. Paper cranes fluttered from branches like blessings caught mid-flight. Katie stood barefoot on the stone path, her simple ivory dress flowing gently in the breeze. No heels, no veil, just her heart, raw and open. Dylan waited at the end of the path in a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, nerves dancing behind his calm smile. Madison gripped her tiny basket of petals. Mommy, do I have to throw them one by one? No, sweetheart. You can toss them like confetti if you want. She beamed. Good. Because I made them rainbow. Dylan laughed from the altar. Of course you did. The music started. Soft acoustic guitar, played by one of the artists Dylan had supported. No cell phones. No press. Just a handful of women who had once been strangers, now family. Katie took a breath, then stepped forward. They didn't stand on a platform. They stood face to face, hands intertwined, hearts visible. The officiant, a woman who ran an after-school program for teen moms, asked if they had vows. Dylan nodded. He spoke first. I used to think love meant building, achieving, earning. He paused. But then I met someone who taught me that love isn't something you win, it's something you tend. He looked into Katie's eyes. I didn't lose you 5 years ago. I lost the version of myself that was worthy of you. This man standing here now, he's been waiting a long time to finally come home. Katie's voice trembled when she spoke. I don't believe in perfect love anymore, she said. But I believe in choice, and I choose you. Not because you became someone else, but because you remembered who you always could have been. They didn't cry for drama. They cried because it was honest. Madison walked up holding the ring box. She handed it to Dylan. Don't drop it, okay? Everyone laughed. Dylan placed the ring on Katie's finger, not with trembling hands, but steady ones. When she placed his ring, she said softly, You're not who I left. And he replied, You're why I became him. After the vows, there was no formal reception, just a meal under fairy lights. Madison sat between them, cheeks sticky with frosting, feet dangling from her chair. Someone put on music, soft, jazzy, slow. Dylan stood and held out a hand. Katie raised an eyebrow. You remember how to dance? He smiled. I remember how to follow. They danced barefoot under the lights, spinning slowly in the grass, forehead to forehead. Madison ran circles around them, pretending to be a butterfly. There were no toasts, no hashtags, just three people, moving together in time. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, they posed for one photo. Just one. No filters, no edits. Dylan, Katie, Madison, standing before the mural. Madison held their hands, beaming. The photographer, a quiet young woman from the foundation, framed them perfectly. "Hold still," she said. But in truth, they weren't holding still. They were holding on to healing, to forgiveness, to each other. The sun lowered to a golden hush as everyone gathered around a long wooden table on the lawn. No catered platters, no corporate wine list, just homemade dishes from the women Dylan's foundation had supported. Lasagnas, fruit salads, cornbread, pies wrapped in foil and love. Madison sat between Katie and Dylan, swinging her legs, her dress smeared with frosting and laughter. To her left sat a painter who had once lived in a shelter. To her right, a young mother who'd found her first apartment through Katie's grant program. No influencers, no designers, just family. People who showed up because they wanted to, not because they had to. Dylan stood. He didn't hold a flute of champagne. He held a glass of lemonade with a strawberry slice on the rim, Madison's contribution. "Thank you," he began, voice rough with emotion. "Not just for being here, but for witnessing this." Eyes turned. Some teared up. "I spent a long time thinking success was about how high you climb, but the truth is," he looked at Katie, "it's about who's still holding your hand when you stop running." He turned to Madison. "And who makes you want to slow down?" Madison giggled. "That's me." Everyone laughed. "I used to chase everything," Dylan said. "Today, I'm choosing to stay." The food gave way to music, not loud, not staged, just a speaker connected to someone's phone. Madison ran onto the lawn with no shoes and no plan, twirling in her white dress like the whole sky was clapping for her. Katie sat on a picnic blanket watching her, the hem of her dress tucked under her thighs, a plate of half-eaten pie in her lap. Dylan joined her, lying back on the grass. "She's never danced like that before," he murmured. "She's never felt this safe before." Katie reached for his hand. Their fingers locked. No wedding planner could have scripted this. It wasn't glamorous. It was theirs. Later, the guitar played again, something slow, warm, and full of memory. Dylan rose first, then offered his hand to Katie. She smiled, took it, and followed him to the open space under the lights. They danced barefoot, just swaying. No choreography, no spectacle. Madison ran to them and hugged both their legs mid-spin. "I want to dance too." Dylan crouched and lifted her between them. "You already are." She wrapped her arms around his neck and leaned into Katie's shoulder. The three of them moved together as one. No applause, no cameras, just love. Real, quiet, earned love. While Katie and Madison played with sparklers by the fountain, Dylan found himself sitting beside an elderly woman who had lost her daughter years ago. "I never thought I'd live to see a day like this," she said softly. He smiled. "Me neither." "You're not the same man from the papers," she added. "No," he said. "That man was all noise. This one listens." She nodded. "Then don't stop." By night's end, Madison was curled on a couch inside the estate, fast asleep with a cookie still in her hand. Katie gently pulled a blanket over her. Dylan watched from the doorway. "She looks so peaceful," he whispered. "She is," Katie replied. "For the first time in her life, she doesn't feel like something's missing." Dylan looked at her. "Me." Katie didn't speak. She just nodded. He stepped closer. "And you?" he asked. Katie turned to him, her eyes soft. "I stopped waiting for you a long time ago, Dylan." His chest tightened. "But tonight," she added, "I realized I wasn't waiting. I was preparing." They stepped onto the balcony. The party was winding down below, murmurs, soft music, laughter trailing into the night. Dylan stood behind Katie, wrapping his arms gently around her waist. "I don't deserve this," he said. "No," she agreed. "You chose it. That's what makes it real." Madison stirred below but didn't wake. "Will we make it?" he asked. Katie leaned her head back onto his chest. "We already are." The house was quiet again. Sunlight spilled through the wide windows of the estate's private gallery. dusting every frame with soft gold. Katie walked in with a cup of coffee, barefoot, robe wrapped loosely around her. She paused in front of the mural Madison had inspired. Dylan was already there, crouched, adding something beneath the frame with a small metal plaque and a screwdriver. "What are you doing?" she asked gently. He didn't turn. Finishing it. When he stepped back, Katie knelt beside him. The plaque read, "Love, when given a second chance, doesn't just heal, it redefines everything. Dedicated to the girl who found her father before he found himself." She touched his shoulder. "You mean that?" "I live that," he replied. In the kitchen, Madison sat at the table, coloring. Crayons were everywhere. As usual, Katie kissed her head. "What you working on, little Picasso?" "It's a surprise," she said, tongue between her teeth. Dylan leaned in. "Can I peek?" She held it up. It was a house. A big one. Windows wide open. A backyard with 3 stick figures. One was twirling. One was reading. One was holding pancakes. "That's me," she pointed. "And Mommy. And you." Dylan's throat tightened. "Why pancakes?" "Because you make them wrong, but I like them." They all laughed. She scribbled in a sun with a smiling face. Katie looked at Dylan. "She's happy. She's safe," he added. That evening, while Katie and Madison napped, Dylan sat alone in his office. He pulled out an old journal, one he hadn't opened since the night Katie left. Blank pages stared back. He began to write. "To the man I used to be. You chased everything but the one thing that mattered. You thought love was a transaction, time was currency, and presence could be outsourced. You were wrong. But you grew. You learned to kneel, to listen, to stop solving and start seeing. And because of that, she came back, not to the man you were, but to the one you became." He closed the journal, and for the first time, forgave himself. 3 months later, Dylan opened a new wing of the Foundation's gallery. Katie stood by his side. Madison held both their hands. News outlets were invited, but Dylan gave no speech. Instead, Madison walked to the front, handed one of her drawings to the program director, and whispered, "Put this up." The entire room clapped. It was a new piece, a sun shining over a house with stick figures smiling beneath it. This time, there was a dog. Katie looked confused. "A dog?" Madison grinned. "We're getting one." "Daddy promised." Dylan grinned. "Guess I did." They laughed. The moment was light, but its weight was generational. They weren't just building a family. They were building legacy. Back at the estate, framed photos lined the hallway. Candid ones. A laugh frozen midair. A paint-splattered apron. A burnt pancake flipped wrong side up. The last frame. The mural. Below it hung that same plaque. Madison walked by, fingers trailing the gold edges. She read the plaque aloud, slowly. "Love, when given a second chance, doesn't just heal." She looked up at Katie. "What's that last word mean?" "Fine?" Katie knelt beside her. "It means love can change everything, even mistakes." Katie kissed her forehead. "Especially mistakes." Dylan walked up and scooped her into his arms. "Ready for bed? Can we sleep in the big bed?" Katie raised an eyebrow. He laughed. "Just for tonight." They walked down the hallway, a trio of silhouettes moving beneath the light. A family, finally whole, not because they were perfect, but because they chose each other, again and again. If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you that love isn't always flawless, but it can still be beautiful, that it's never too late to say, "I see you now," then please, comment. Second chances build stronger love. Like this video so more souls can find this message. Subscribe to Love in Twilights, where true love gets a voice, and where every broken heart still has a story worth telling. Thank you, my beautiful family. This is your story too.